be patriotic. That means putting the national interests above one's personal interest and working beyond the call of duty, as well as embracing that undying sense of victory in humankind endeavor. Madam President, honorable ministers, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, the question we must pose is, how can we leverage on domestic resource mobilization to accelerate economic transformation? Firstly, we need to rally behind our president, Dr. E.G. Mnangagwa, who has made a clarion call that the nation should embrace zero tolerance for corruption. In that regard, the presidential call to fight corruption is a call to ensure that the public and the private sectors should prudentially and economically take care of our scarce resources for purposes of maximizing their usage in driving the country's economic growth. Secondly, the first 4 years of our implementation of Vision 2030 have proven that unexpected risks and challenges are growing, more regular in their incidence, and are more severe in their impact. With COVID-19 and now the Russia-Ukraine war being the major highlights. As one of the Southern Africa's most open economies, our economy has been benefiting from the stable world economy. The COVID-19 pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine conflict have slowed down the pace of our economic growth to about 3%, down from an average of 6%, as projected in the National Development Strategy #1. It is therefore imperative that the country leverages on domestic resource mobilization in the work of unpredictable and volatile and aid, as well as the skewed foreign direct investment as a result of the debilitating illegal sanctions. Madam President, the negative impact of sanctions on our economy should be tackled head-on, guided by the President's mantra, Nyika inobakwa igotongwa neveni vayo, ilizwe lakiwa njalo libuswa ngabanikazi. Kakho omunye ozasisebenzela, apana umwe achati shandira. Isupa chedu ndisu tinofanira kushanda. Tichishanda nemazvo, tichishanda tine manyuku-nyuku. To that an extent, domestic resource mobilization speaks to strategic human capital deployment that is highly productive. Now, sometimes when we speak of production and productivity, we think of agriculture. In our offices, if the files don't move from one office to the other for implementation of what these files contain, that is slowing down the pace of our development. Files must move. Files must move so that we implement what those files contain. Some of the files just need a signature. It shouldn't take 3 days for one to sign. Thirdly, needless to remind this august gathering that our country has not been spared from the rising energy and food inflationary pressures, which have been exacerbated by the demand-supply imbalance that has occurred globally due to the Russia-Ukraine war. The world economy is unstable at the moment, is shaking. We are, therefore, expected to propose strategies to push the masses out of poverty and offer solutions for our country's most pressing challenges. The solutions should largely be anchored on vigorous domestic resource mobilization, because we are on our own in order to accelerate economic transformation. I therefore challenge each and every committee to demonstrate how domestic resource mobilization can and should be marshaled. When you make your presentation, I would want to see how each committee is proffering ideas on domestic resource mobilization. We don't want to hear the same song. Equally, every ministry led by the Minister of Finance and Economic Development must champion domestic resource mobilization within the arena of their respective portfolios. One such ministry which has caught our eyes under the direction of the President, the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructural Development. Honorable Mona, are you there? Yes. That ministry deserves a round of applause. We are utilizing our own resources, our own human capital, our own equipment. That's how it should be. That is the marching order that has been given by our President. Let us respond accordingly. Madam President, of the Senate, I come to the fourth element. Domestic resource mobilization can be achieved if we spruce up our taxation regime through sustainable digital taxation system. This will ensure maximization of revenue collection, thereby guaranteeing optimum resource mobilization through the taxation avenue. Treasury should invest expeditiously in this area. I read yesterday's paper, Zimra indicated that they'd hit their target of 1.6 trillion Zim dollars. I want to believe that they can do much more if they can work through their digital thrust, especially at the points of entry, especially by bridge. Let us learn, in tandem, the formalization of the informal sector, economic sector, is long overdue. Let us learn from Bolivia, Bangladesh, and Iran on how these countries have exponentially formalized their informal sector to make them formal economies. At the moment, 60% of our economy is in the informal sector. If and when we formalize it, we are likely to increase the tax base and in so doing, enhance our domestic resource mobilization for accelerated economic development. Fifthly, domestic resource mobilization can be anchored on the National Sovereign Wealth Fund, which must be so created as to remain robust. It is an imperative that assets such as balance of payment surpluses, some foreign currency reserves, proceeds of privatization, fiscal surpluses, and the receipts resulting from commodity exports can constitute a stout national sovereign wealth fund. In addition to the employment of the National Sovereign Wealth Fund in domestic resource mobilization, the stock exchange, the pension and insurance funds can be prudentially be used to enhance our domestic resource mobilization in order to accelerate economic transformation. Madam President, honorable ministers, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, as we celebrate an anticipated economic growth of about 5% in 2023, attention should be shifted to the pattern, quality, and the resilience of this expected quantitative growth. In that respect, economic transformation is necessary to enhance the qualitative economic growth that is premised on poverty reduction in tandem with sustainable goal number 1. Implementation of such a sustainable goal guarantees economic transformation. In that regard, the African Center for Economic Transformation, in their publication of 2011, defined economic transformation as follows, and I quote, "A process involving increases in productivity, technological capability, economic diversification, and international competitiveness that support rapid, sustained, and shared growth in employment and incomes of the population over time," unquote. That's what we are talking about when we say accelerated economic transformation. Our Constitution eloquently buttresses the same notion of economic transformation as it provides thus in Article 13, entitled National Development. In subsection 1, the state and all institutions and agencies of government at every level must endeavor to facilitate rapid and equitable development, and in particular must take measures to A, promote private initiative and self-reliance. Self-reliance. B, foster agricultural, commercial, industrial, technological, and scientific development. All that section is captured in our Education 5.0. And in this subsection 1B says fostering agricultural growth. And in our case, agriculture is the anchor of our economic growth and development because it contributes 17% to the gross domestic product. Followed by mining. C, foster the development of industrial and commercial enterprises in order to empower Zimbabwean citizens as we drive towards an upper middle income economy. And D, bring about balanced development of different areas of Zimbabwe. In particular, a proper balance in the development of rural and urban areas. This speaks very well and sits very well to the presidential mantra, leave no one, no place behind, is constitutionally grounded, and therefore we need to respond accordingly. Subsection 2, measures referred to in this section must involve the people in the formulation and implementation of development plans and programs that affect them. We as leaders in Parliament, we have to move with the people. We have no choice but to move with the people and think with them and implement with them our development programs. Subsection 3 says, measures referred to in this section must protect and enhance the rights of the people, particularly women, to equal opportunities in development. And finally, subsection 4, the state must ensure that local communities benefit from the resources in their areas, unquote. Local communities benefit from resources in their areas. As members of parliament, we have to watch out whether any development in our area, in our constituency, does benefit the local people in their respective areas. Accordingly, what is critical for us is to strategize on how the qualitative and quantitative economic transformation can be achieved through leveraging on domestic resource mobilization. In doing so, we should introspect on how and why we could have missed the economic radar in the 2022 budget. Both the private and public sectors are obligated to respond accordingly. Need I remind this gathering that the role of Parliament in implementing the domestic resource mobilization principle is not only peculiar to Zimbabwe. The implementation of the African Union's Agenda 2063 also hinges on Africa's ability to mobilize sufficient, predictable, and timely financial resources. Hence the call for policy initiatives aimed at strengthening the mobilization and effective use of domestic resources. This transformation approach to economic growth has been spelled out in Agenda 2063 under the 8 critical enablers outlined in Article 74. You can Google Agenda 2063 and go to Article 74. You will see the enablers that I'm talking about here. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area also emboldens the call for domestic resource mobilization grounded on value addition and beneficiation of our God-given natural resources is guided by Education 5.0 mantra, whose thrust is science and technology, that speaks to innovation and industrial hubs at our tertiary institutions. Honorable members, to succeed in these our efforts, we need to liberate our mindsets. We need to liberate our mindsets. As Bob Marley would sing, I quote, "Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. To assume transformational economic growth and development, we have to change our mindset accordingly. Madam President, honorable ministers, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, I conclude by calling upon Parliament to espouse the principle of monitoring and evaluation in assessing the performance of our economic growth. As Enoch Godongwana would observe, and I quote him, "You won't realize the distance you have walked until you look around and realize how far you have been," unquote. It is therefore imperative that as we actualize our Vision 2030, we must continually look back and evaluate the journey we have traversed from the Transitional Stabilization Program up to the National Development Strategy 1. I hope this pre-budget seminar will set out clear landmarks towards the crafting of a transformative 2023 budget. I wish you fruitful and mutually rewarding deliberations as we fashion out proposals for the 2023 national budget. I now declare the 2022 pre-budget seminar officially opened. Siyabonga. Walumba, Tinotenda. I thank you for your attention.